Friends, family, fans, welcome back to another episode of Back Nine Bets with at Fade My Plays, aka Brian. How the hell are you doing today, my buddy?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing, it was exciting to see Siwoo, get that W. I won't lie, even though I wasn't on him at all, I'm super gutted for Hayden Buckley because he is a guy I'm extremely bullish on. Still a fantastic performance by him, and to hold up, with that lead. It was one mistake at the end, and Siwoo capitalized. In fact, I heard an interesting stat today that Siwoo has been top 5 on the final day in 5 events. 4 of those he's won. So talk about clutch gene. He came through big. Didn't hit even close to an outright. The closest I was sniffing was JT Poston, but not a great week overall. I do have to say a huge shout out to Corey Connors for putting in a -6 on Sunday to not only hit the T20 for me, but also he was my one and done selection like every other idiot. So that was really clutch to sneak in that top 20.
No, that was badass, and I had some heroic players myself that came through for the Rotoballer one and done competition that we do, which this show is sponsored by rotoballer.com. Please go check out rotoballer.com/radio. Get yourself 50% off. Use code Maniac for another 10%. Thank you to the Rotoballer people out there. They are amazing. Doing all the articles, all the research stuff, everything you can do. We've got free stuff. We've got a lot of premium crap that you can go and get your hands on if that's your kind of thing. Got different types of packages, all that jazz. So in my Rotoballer one and done, I had Matt Kuchar. My theme for one and done for that article piece is going to be the catch up king. If you're out of the one and done, this is your guy that you're going to roll with to try and do it. And Kuch came through, man. He made those 3 bogeys off the trot and then out and just powered his way. I think he made only like 6 or 7 bogeys for the whole tournament, including those first 3. So he just went and just absolutely crushed it for the rest of the day.
Looking at it right now, he had a bogey-free Friday, 1 bogey on Saturday, and 2 on Sunday. Very, very impressive, especially for you at least, that birdie finish. Not bad.
Yes. It was incredible. I had, he was doing good stuff for me. And then Denny McCarthy, I had him in Mark Fox's The Plug Lies. Denny just, I don't know, bro. He just doesn't tend to get it done when he's under the gun. But there's something about putters, good putters, that when they find themselves in contention, that you can't lean unless your name's like Cam Smith kind of thing.
Oh my God.
You can't lean on a putter to get the job done under the gun. And it's a really interesting thing I'm going to check out because it's so difficult. Like Buckley was just holding putts after putts, and then kind of down the stretch, he did do a few, but then the one that he absolutely needed, he just couldn't quite get done. But that was a tough hole for him, Super tough 18th hole.
Crazy as well. You bring up an interesting point. Like putters for sure have kind of, because it's the one trick pony aspect of what they do, that can really throw into sharp relief, like just how negative their scores will be come Sunday, because when they're in contention, the hardest part of golf already, which is, closing that final stroke of the hole, is put in that much more of a spotlight, because already you're like, oh, it's Denny McCarthy. It's 11 feet. Yeah. He should just sink this one, no problem. So it's that added pressure as well. And when you look at the guys who are truly elite putters, very few and far between when it comes to wins. I mean, I'm just looking at the stats here from last year, the entire season. Lucas Herbert, no wins. I'm talking about last season.
The best putters on tour. Yeah.
I mean, Denny, Todd, Tyrrell Hatton, Bo Hostler, Seabez, Kelly Craft, and Cam Smith checking in at number 8. It's just like the top 7 guys, I think they have 2 wins between them.
Yeah.
All of last year. And those 2 wins are from one of the best, in the world, Tyrrell Hatton. And I'm pretty sure Bo Hostler got one, or he was a top 5. Maybe it was at the Valero that I'm thinking he won when it was JJ Spawn. But either way, it's just putting can't save you throughout an entire weekend. It can definitely help you get there. But when it comes down to it, you need to make sure that you are hitting putts in high pressure situations. And guys with an all around game seem to have a better time doing that.
Yeah. And, we're making Hayden Buckley seem like he is just a good putter. He isn't. He's actually a really good. I think he led the field in driving off the tee for the week. So he's and that's it. Like that's the first stepping stone to great golf is putting yourself in a position to hit great approach shots. And he did that. So props to him. He's going to be, he's here. He's shown up now, and it's going to be fun to watch him blossom. I don't know who has him in our fantasy draft, and how did you do in your fantasy league, by the way?
Won both my matchups. Came
nice.
in second overall in points in one, third overall in points in the other. Seabez really let me down in that one. But to win both matchups, that's all that really matters. In fact, I had one of my lineups. I brought it up for you. Let me just pull it up because I think I had like 3 of the top 5, including Siwoo.
Oh my God!
And it was just like a miracle of a performance from him. Hold on, here we go. Great radio here, not radio TV.
While I'll vamp real quick and say that we are in the same fantasy league. For those of us that haven't, that you don't know about that, we in actually both the leagues, and we did one of the redraft or the draft reviews, one of the podcasts that we did earlier too. So that was a fun draft review, and we had a great time breaking down the draft there. So
the
first week in the books.
No top 3, but 2 of them I had Siwoo, Lipsky up there. And then Decky, Aaron Rai, Harris English, and Seabez.
Okay. Yeah. I had some Seabez in mine, and oh my God, the guy just came out with an absolute clunker. What is going on there? Yeah. So that's kind of just one of those things is you never freaking know. And I still, Brian, haven't totally tallied up exactly what a absolute slaughter it was for me last week, because I think I landed up losing like 9 units. I had 10 placement bets and only 2 of them cash. One of them being Corey Connors and the other one being a Brendan Todd heroic Sunday to finish 29th for a top 10.
And that's same with Corey Connors. Talk about a heroic Sunday to cash that one. Like I literally marked it as dead on Saturday.
I know, dude. Russell Henley, he was sitting 9th at one point. Felt cute, shot a 38 on the back. I think he made 3 bogeys on the back 9 alone, lost 3 strokes, went out in 31. So I just got himself a streak together. DFS Showdown was looking sexy. Henley melted down on the back 9 in Waialae again. Surprise, surprise. Some things just never fail to repeat themselves. So that's what's cooking at the Sony. Anything else you want to chat about there? It was kind of a, the last time I had a guest on, they had a winner absolutely choke it away. None of us really had that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I think I ended up down 3 units just around there on the week. But really what I love is that a full field event, we're back, we're in the thick of it. I mean, we're starting the West Coast swing in a big way. We had, a come from behind win with Siwoo doing a weekend 64-64. That's hugely impressive. And now we go to the Amex, which is a crazy setup with the 3 courses, and they're going back to that. So it's a full 50, it's a full live event, and then the cut happens. So I'm just excited about that. It felt great to, be sweating the cut again. Just incredible performances by guys. And one thing that I love about a full field event where you have a mix of, completely unheard of guys towards the top, as well as guys, that are mid-tier, but like no one is under any impression that Andrew Putnam or David Lipsky or Matt Kuchar are the best of the best anymore. But it's fantastic when you see those guys compete, because then you start to think, ooh, could this be a switch? Could they have found something? So I think that's why so many guys, including myself, gravitate towards people who have played this early in the year, because if you haven't played with the holidays and all that, it's been over a month for guys, like this week, my guy that I love to lose money on, Davis Riley, it's his first tournament in like 7 weeks, 8 weeks. I don't care how much golf you're playing, tournament golf is the only way to get the feel for it. So, hey, we're back, in lots of names that I'm excited about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're going to definitely get into the guys we want to get into here towards after I pick your brain about the whole the meat and potatoes of the show, is trying to get inside the heads of my guests and just figure out what your research process is for the week in general, like week to week things, what your strengths are, what your strategy is, what your philosophy is about betting. I really want to get into the nitty gritties of this stuff with you. And you are the kind of guy that I think we can touch we can be like Michael Jackson and touch every single subject. And talk about outrights, first round leaders, placements, and head-to-heads because you do them all. You
do.
do them on a daily basis, which is a little more different than because I only do it pre-event, and then that's that for me. So I'm still trying to figure out if I want to get into the whole. I just don't feel like I'm that good at predicting a single round of golf, although I do love Showdown. That's one of my best DFS things, but that's a whole different kettle of fish. So, Brian, let's first start off with, talk me through, I know we were DMing the other day and you said, I'm already looking at the stats. What goes through your brain when you're looking at a tournament before the odds come out? I know you're getting your stuff done over the weekend. So walk me through your process, what you're kind of looking for, what kind of tools you use, like just your general process and prepping for the week ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, number one thing that I would say that is one of my strengths is I'm a great collator. Like I love looking at, there's not one site I like using, one person I follow I like using. I love looking at kind of all the different stats from every which way. I don't think there's any one model, that is perfect for me personally, because I like being able to kind of throw in my own little kinks and all of that. But the first thing that I start looking at is just what success on paper looks like at any given course, making sure that I am aligned. I have a somewhat of an understanding of at this course, you're going to need a little bit more distance off the tee, or you're going to need more accuracy, or there's like this week, I think something like 95 bunkers. So how's your sand saves? How's your around the green game? Things like that, like just general overall stats that even though they may not go into the guys you actually end up betting, just having that as a baseline is really important. And then I won't lie to you, like a lot of it for me is going to be, there is a sense of recency bias for me. I think that it's really important for players to be coming in form, even if they haven't played in a few tournaments. What was their last tournament before they did? Are they taking a break because they just need a break? They've been playing a lot of golf, or are they taking a break because they broke their swing and are trying to fix it? Like if someone wins, like if Siwoo won, of course he's playing this week, but if he won and didn't play for 3 weeks, it's because he's enjoying his win. Like JT did that after winning the US Open last year. Like, I mean, those type of things are very, very different than someone like Billy Horschel, who's even talking to the media, like, I need to take a step back and, figure it out. Or a guy who's coming off injury. I need to, work on my back, work on my neck, make sure it's all good. Then I'll be back out. I think that's really important. And then finally, like, you got to just trust that you're not going to win every week. Like golf gambling is such a different beast in the sense that there are tiers of like success rate. So outright betting, if you hit outrights at, let's say 10%, like if you hit 4 outrights in a season, that's pretty damn good. Like you've made a decent amount of money there. And I think that you have to be all right losing. Like when I first started golf betting, I was betting like 12 outrights every single time and just very, very small units. And that's fine. And I hit more often, but at the same time, I was winning very little because so much of my profit was eaten up in the other outright bets I made. So it's okay to lose outrights, because if you crush it in the head-to-heads, if you crush it in the placements, then the 2-3 units total that you spread across 8 different outrights is, that's 2 placement wins and you're all good.
I love that, bro, because that is such a great philosophy to have when it comes to weighing up your risk. Because for me, I try and use the placements and the head-to-heads to, if I can break even with my head-to-heads and my placements covering my first round leaders or my outright bets, then it's been a great week for me, because then I'm free rolling until I hit that one winner. And for me, it's roundabout 9 times return. So I don't really go super aggressive. I don't know, like what is your like your return strategy on outrights?
So in general, for outright betting on the PGA Tour, I flirt with, depending on what the tournament is, because some tournaments I'm much more excited about certain outrights. Other times I'm, just kind of like riding the stats. Yeah. But in general, I'll do anywhere between 2.5 to 4 units total on outright bets to return between 15 and 20. Again, depending on how much, if I'm doing 4 units of outright bets, it's to return 15 or 16. If I'm doing 2.5 units on outright bets, it's to return 18 or 19. But again, that is fully going into it with the idea of none of these will probably hit. So I need to be able to make up those 2.5 units or 4 units elsewhere. And it's the same. I take the same approach with first round leaders, which I absolutely love in first round T5 market. Is I bet it in a way that if I hit one first round T5, it covers both my first round T5 bets and my first round leader bets. So it's like all I need is one of my, 5, 6, 7 guys to hit that first round T5, and it covers all my bets of that day. So if they hit the first round leader outright, or if I get another first round T5, then I'm making some serious money. So it's like about really creating a system where you're covering yourself with other bets that, I mean, to say are more likely to hit is very tough. Like 150 guys are teeing off. First round T5 might be 20 people. So, whatever. But like still, it's mitigated risk. And I think that I really respect the people that can keep it to, 3, 4 guys outright every week. I can't. Like I said, I cut it down from 12, but I usually am around about 8. But I love the thrill of on a Sunday being in contention. And no fucking, sorry, excuse my language, no top 20 bet, no T5 bet is going to beat that thrill of, BK, Brian Kirshner, he had Hayden Buckley 80-1, like absolute meltdown, but Sunday was absolutely electric for him. I had Scotty Scheffler last year at Waste Management. I had Sam Burns against Scotty Scheffler at what was it? Charles Schwab. Like him putting off the green in that playoff, like holy shit. What a day. Like nothing beats that. So
going off like 3 hours before, just absolutely pretty much getting himself into playoff before Scotty Scheffler almost teed off, which is one of the most unheard of things in golf. And
I mean, it's crazy.
I think it's just the best. And you touch on such a good point, because this is a show that we're trying to, like I said, work on betting strategy and trying to find something that works for you. Like if you're a listener, so there's a market for people that just want to listen to us and we give the picks that we're playing this week and they'll just follow us. There's also people out there that are listening, trying to learn. Once upon a time, I was sitting watching a YouTube show, like something like this, and I wish there were more of them where people spoke about their in and outs of how they go about placing bets and things like that. So, it sounds like you definitely vary your outright philosophy and your strategy on the different tournament. And I think that is a very good point. I like to almost double my units I expose myself to on the outright market for majors. And for like the players, I think there's any sort of event that's got a futures, I'm trying to do my 2 units on futures and then another 2 units on the week of, and just kind of go with that. So that's really interesting. And I'll just touch on another thing that you do. Okay. So if you're listening, this is Brian, aka at Fade My Play. Is it plays or plays? It's plays, right?
At Fade My Plays is probably the name, but Fade My Play is easier to type out.
Okay. But yes, so if you're going to go get following Brian, it's at Fade My Plays, right? And I know I have it, because I copied it off the Twitter. But you also tend to put out a few daily cards. We'll get back to T20s and matchups here shortly. But from an outrights perspective, what do you look? I just had Flag Hunting on here last week, and he's a big advocate of pouncing on things in round 1, things like that. But it seems like you do a lot more post-round betting. Once the market settles, you kind of take a look at it, and then you roll after round 1, try and pounce on a leader, or you pounce on a leader that's sitting outside the top 10 going into a Sunday. Talk to me about your game plan for in tournament betting, which I think Sia Najad has been doing a lot of that, where you kind of just have your predetermined analytics in your brain, and then you just let your eyes tell you what you're seeing, and then say, okay, is this the way I want to roll? So let me know what your in-tournament outright betting strategy is.
I love like round by round head-to-head matchups, because I think that in general, there are a lot of ways that you can capitalize on a golfer's talents that may not show over 4 full days. So for example, with more mid-tier guys that are specialists like Denny McCarthy, when you're looking at approach like a guy like Lee Hodges or something like that, or younger guys where people don't know too much about them, if they have a certain day where if Denny McCarthy loses 2 strokes putting in a single round, you can almost bet every dollar you have he's not going to do that the next day. So when he's at, +2 on the day and being paired up against someone else like Bill Haas, that is also +2, and they're -110 or even -120, a little bit more juice for Denny in that head-to-head matchup. It's like, well, okay, so Bill Haas was just kind of bad across the board, but if you looked at all the strokes game metrics, Denny was all right, except for his putting, which is his one strength. Let me capitalize on that tomorrow. Now, it doesn't always work out. I mean, see Tom Kim having the worst putting. He's not a great putter, but the worst putting performance of his young career. Nobody predicted him missing the cut. And it doesn't always work, but what I do love is that a lot of guys regress to the mean, especially on Saturdays, because of the fact that they've made the cut. They're not sweating that anymore. A lot of guys feel that pressure, especially younger guys on a Friday. And then guys out of contention on a Sunday. So someone that is, I almost said 9 strokes back, but we know how that went. But someone that is T56, that's a good golfer that just had, a bad Saturday. They're not worried about, making top 10. They're not worried about winning, so they can play a lot more relaxed golf. And if they're just a better golfer than their head-to-head matchup, that's something I want to target. Also, there are guys who love the pressure. I mean, you know better than most, someone like JT who thrives on a Friday. I mean, he is just a guy that absolutely loves round 2. There are guys that consistently year after year put in incredible round 2s, incredible round 4s. Like, for example, one of my bets this past Sunday was relatively unknown Novak. I think his first name's Andrew Novak.
Yeah, Andrew.
To have the lowest round score. Now, he didn't, but he missed it by 1 stroke. And why? Because last year and this year, he is in top 5 for round 4 scoring. And I think it's because, on top of being, an up-and-coming young golfer, but it's because he hasn't been in contention yet on any of the Sundays that he's played. So there's been no pressure, and he's a good golfer, so he just shows being good. And yes, again, like I said, that bet didn't hit, but at 80-1, 1 stroke off, you can feel good about, yes, that was a guy I should target, and I did target him in the head-to-head and hit that. So I think with round-by-round betting, there are things that you can look at that don't make sense for a whole tournament, whether it's regression to the mean. If you don't want to take the chance on, Denny had a bad day, so I'll bet him to finish T20. He could have 2 bad days. It's a way to mitigate that risk. And also, I love doing low round scores and things like that, because again, there are guys that there are plotters who are going to go -4, -5 every day. And then there's those guys, like I always say it, Mav, Willie Z, just off the top of my head, Si Woo, another one.
Davis Riley before Sunday.
Any given day, they can put in a -8, -9, and it just will explode the board. So I think it's just a really fun way to get action, especially if you're not good at DFS. Like, I'm garbage at DFS, both showdown and tournament. So it's a great way to get involved round by round.
Yeah, no, dude. And just touching back on your matchups in tournament, because we'll transition to your pre-event matchups after this. But when it comes to the regression thing, I had Mackenzie Hughes, and he had himself a crazy ball striking day. And then we had this discussion on Twitter, and you said, look, I know you've got him for your outright at the Tournament of Champions, but he's going backwards. Like, this style of play that he generated so many good, he almost took down the first round. And
it was all around the green.
Yeah, it was all, he chipped in for an eagle, I think. And he's typically really good around the green, but man, chipping in is so difficult, which makes what Si Woo did even more impressive on that 17th hole. But you mentioned, there's no chance he's going to keep this kind of ball striking up. But I was more so taking a chance on him at 80-1 in the Tournament of Champions. He's this very elusive player coming out of a break after all the speed training, all that jazz. So that's what's cooking there. And it was really, it happened, So another thing that also you mentioned is you can have this philosophy and the strategy, but it's not typically going to happen every single time, obviously. Otherwise, we'd all be $1 million riches.
I was reverse swept round 1, that's what happens.
Exactly. So you just got to come up with a game plan that you can steadily get through the week and through the year and afford to have. I'm currently on a mega downhill. So thank God my units are all in proportion and whatever, because if I was betting the most random amounts of money, I'd be absolutely fucked, right? So it's good to have discipline when it comes to placing your bets. And I think that's just kind of another take I want to put out there, is just make sure that what you're doing is being able to cover your outrights with more safer bets, like the ones that I've lost, 17 out of the last 20 bets on. But
Well,
that
and
is
like,
what it is. It
yeah,
happens.
what we're talking about as well. Like I showed you my false swing in like RSM. I lost 15 units in one single tournament. Fortinet, I lost 20 in one
Yeah.
single tournament. Now that's again mitigated because at Shriners I made 24 and blah blah blah. But like, if you're not managing yourself well, like it can crumble on you real fast. And like one more thing about the head to head, and this is like a general rule that I think a lot of people, that play the head to heads on a round by round basis look out for, is guys that go super low almost never back it up.
Yeah.
And that's like something to really target. Like for the final round, one of my bets was Siwoo over Putnam. Why? Because Siwoo had a good day. Putnam had a better Saturday. Shot a 62, -8, backed it up with 68. Like it's just, those are those things where you see Nick Hardy had an incredible Friday, mediocre Saturday and Sunday. Like it's those type of things that you can look out for, and that'll help you, going back to what we were talking about with bankroll management, and like, let's take some calculated risks here.
Yeah. And I think if you gave it a chance, I think you'd be a pretty good showdown player, because you tend to understand these dynamics, like that's the key thing in showdown, is to fade the guys that had those hot rounds, because everyone's kind of pouncing on them to have that happen again. But the chances of that happening again are so slim. Someone else is going to be the hero the next day. You don't see people just going nuclear 2-3 days in a row. So that is quite interesting. And I think you should give it a shot, because you seem like you grasp. Yeah.
I just lose it.
I mean, I lose a lot too, dude. Like you only win. I mean, I don't even know if I'm profitable this year on DFS either, but it's just how it goes.
I just
it's
look
the
at your
showdown stuff
targets and make my lineups with that and data golf.
Okay, so for tournament long matchups.
Yes.
I'm going to explain to you how I do my matchups, and then I know that you might have a slightly different process, because I rate my guys out. They get a power rating. So like right now, I think Scotty Scheffler's sitting here at a casual. Let me pull it up here real quick. He's sitting at 302. So if I want to find a guy like Cameron Young, who's sitting at -1.193, there has to be a full unit or full power point, like a full one data point of difference in their power rating, in order for me to bet them at -110.
Mm-hmm.
So if it goes to -150, that edge has to be that much bigger. And it's a really significant edge, because you're not going to typically see a lot of guys matched up against each other by the sports books that are so different. Like they're typically pretty good at matching up the skill levels, and it's tough to find edges the better these books are getting. So that's why I like having a different model for me is how I've rolled. But I just bet I bet to win one unit on my matchups. I never really parlay them ever until I just did that the other day for shits and gigs. But I kind of just roll with one matchup to win one unit back. And I don't bet more than a -200 number, which you hardly ever see anyway, even though that guy's going to be a favorite. But so that's kind of how I see it. And it's been pretty profitable for me so far, until I lost a Tom Kim bet against Jordan Spieth.
I lost the same one.
Dude, they both missed the cut.
I couldn't believe
Tom Kim, you'd imagine, okay, Jordan Spieth missed the cut. Tom Kim's going to cash this matchup. No, he lost by like 3 strokes. It was just the worst. I'm like having the worst luck right now.
It was a tough week.
Yeah. So talk to me about, I know, is there a little bit of a different approach that you have for tournament long matchups versus your in tournament? Because obviously you got nothing to fade originally.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like just the guys that you like in a week. Like if I'm considering, I really like them, outright, maybe I don't want to do them top 20. Maybe I'll, do their head-to-head matchup because it's against someone that I think will float way further afield or possibly even miss the cut. I also think try and target name value. So a lot of times, because someone has a name, they will be given ridiculous head-to-head odds against someone that may not have that name, but is just either a better golfer or a better informed golfer. Like when I was looking at for this week, I have them all up on another sheet, which I'll grab. But anyway, looking at Jason Day's head-to-heads, and it's like, it's Jason Day and he has a good history here, but he's not in the best form. He's not Jason Day of old. And because he's Jason Day, the guys against him were all plus money, and like those type of matchups where it's like, don't get me wrong, Jason Day can be an incredible golfer and is still
Yes.
a very, very good golfer. But if you're saying, you're going to give me, this is a bad example because I doubt it is one, but like Jason Day over Tom Hoge, I'm going to take Tom Hoge every day.
Yeah.
And, I think that when you're looking at head-to-head matchups, it has to be someone that you think can contend for at least a top 10, maybe not outright, but if it's someone that you don't think has a chance of winning at all, it's not a good head-to-head matchup to make because you're betting on someone to be less worse than someone else rather than someone to be outright better. And that's kind of like a rule I live by. Like, don't bet on, I think this guy's going to miss the cut, so I'll bet that. You want to bet on, I think this guy has a chance to compete and the other guy doesn't. That's what I'm about.
Okay. I love that because that's not, it's inherently organically built into my model, but it's not like I go and make that decision. I typically will be playing the best golfer. I know Spencer, T of Sports, likes to find a guy that his model doesn't like at all. And then also pairing up against, which is kind of like what you said, but adding that extra bit of this guy's extra shit. I kind of really want to take advantage of him this week.
And you can target certain guys. Like, there are definitely those times where you find a matchup that you like because it's a guy that you think is a good golfer and you think can do well here, but the person they're going against has a specific deficiency that you really want to hone in on. Like, if someone, a really easy example is just, we all know Hovland's around the green game is just so bad, like just embarrassingly bad. And if you're going to be playing at a course like this, which of course he's not, but where around the green accounts for so much because of all the bunkers, because of the small greens, I would fade him against a guy like Tony Finau, who has a much better around the green game, but also an incredible long approach game. So isn't going to be doing that so much. So, it's things like that where you can take into account so many different types of stats, but at the end of the day, you got to pick a guy that you think is going to do well versus someone that you don't.
Yeah. And one more final thing on matchups, and it's the reason they're my favorite bet in the world. When you were mentioning a Jason Day and Hideki Matsuyama, these are all people that if you're betting on them for a top 20, they can land up withdrawing and you lose your money. Yeah. Or even if you're not betting on these guys, let's say like you're betting Sam Burns versus Hideki, and Sam Burns is typically going to finish every single round he plays. Hideki and Jason Day, not so much. But if Sam Burns lands up missing the cut, he can still land up cashing a matchup. And that's my favorite part about matchups is the fact that the book, they lay the juice on you. But if you're still playing it at like minus 120, minus 115, and you feel like you have an edge in that matchup, once you've placed that bet, the book can't do anything else to there's no more edge on that. Because if your guy WDs, that's whatever. But if the other guy WDs, then you're cashing that bet instantly. And that's my favorite part, because how many times do we just lose a random bet because some guy didn't finish a round, like in a top 20 or a first round leader or something? It's unfair for us. The edge is totally on the book's side for the most part. So matchups, that's my favorite part about them, is they're the safest, and they can help if you can really, they are grind. You just squeezing out the juice to get that little profit over the long run. And that's kind of my favorite part about it.
How nice is it when you get to the end of a Friday and half your matchups are finished because you already won them? Some guys didn't miss the cut, or some guys missed the cut. It's like, I was talking about this with Teaser Nation last week. Great golf better, bets loads of stuff, but we talk about head-to-heads all the time. And it felt horrible to do because you never like to see a golfer injured. Also, Xander is one of my favorite players because he went to my alma mater, San Diego State, go Aztecs. But it was so obvious he was laboring Monday. And they put out lines. And so, he and I were talking, and it's like, I am hammering, we gave out the whoever it was over Xander. I think it might have been Willie Z or whatever.
Sung Jae or something.
Yeah. But like, I put it out there, just my normal 1 unit. I never put out a head-to-head more than 1 unit. But personally, I put a responsible amount more on it because I genuinely didn't even expect him to finish the round. And lo and behold, 4 holes in, he's like, I'm done. And there you go. And it's like, especially for a golfer, a back problem, you can't mess around with that. So you got to look out.
Especially when you said, I'm going into the round, I'm swinging like a poofter. I'm just out there just puffing it around, So he was going to tell you, I'm not giving it my best today, which is
Yeah.
crazy to think of. All right, placements, my man.
Oh yeah.
What's your game plan now? I'll give you mine while you can
Tell me.
brainstorm what you're thinking about. My model as well. I have my guys ranked, and then it starts at plus 100. I never really bet a placement that's negative money unless my number one guy is like minus 110, like something like that, and he's like a significant favorite. Then
That's
I'll
how I
pounce
lost
on it.
2 units on Tom Kim last week.
Exactly. Thank God, because Hideki, Sungjae, Tom Kim, and Spieth, they were all in the negatives for top 20, and my model doesn't let me bet them. Otherwise, I would have bet Tom Kim at minus 135 or whatever he was. Thank God. Plus money, sometimes it saves you. But it ends at like 15th ranked guy, and he has to probably be around about plus 400 almost for me to bet a top 20 on the 15th ranked guy. And then it resets to top 40 market. Then anyone that's sitting between 15 and about 30, 35, depending on those 30 or 35 odds, will be a top 40 bet if it kicks it out. It starts at plus 100 again and then rolls out from there. So I pretty much use my model to generate those kind of rankings and the thresholds that a golfer needs to meet in order to bet them a placement. So that being said, what is your game plan and your approach to outrights? Placement bets for the
So with placement bets, it's a really simple thing for me. It's the guys that either I have bet outright or was thinking about betting outright that I think have the most consistency about them. So there are guys that I will bet outright, both at the top of the board and the bombs, that I think, hey, if they get hot this week, they could win this thing. And those guys I usually don't bet placements on because I'm counting on them to have, a -9 round. I'm counting on them to have a low round to put them in contention and then to finish it on a Sunday, versus guys that I bet placements on. They're the ones that I think every day are going to be doing consistently decent golf. Every day are going to be putting in the numbers to stay at the top, to never float too far away. I don't need someone, to go -8, -9 to be in contention. They're the guys that I think are most likely to put in those consistent rounds. I think with placements, it's more about not counting on a big explosive, like, I don't need you to make an eagle. I need you to play smart and make a few birdies when you can and tackle those par
within
fives.
yourself.
Yeah. So I think I'm much more conservative with my placement bets. T20, I love, because again, it's like you're betting the guys you're most confident in. T40s, I get too cute with it, and I bet the guys that I'm like, oh, nobody else is thinking of this guy, and then I get reverse swept. And it's happened. Like I think I texted you about it the other day. It's like in 3 of the last 5 tournaments that I've bet T40s, I've been reverse swept entirely. Like, just every bet I made gone. So, it's one of those things where I think you need to be very disciplined to be able to say that. Even with T40, like this week, I am going to be making a couple T40 bets, but they're guys that I'm not taking swings on. These are guys that I think genuinely could be in contention come Sunday and happen to be low enough down that a T40 bet is legitimate.
Yeah, no, I love that, because that's how my matchups and placements are. I use them. My model's currently set at 90% 2022 stats still. So everything they did last year is still matters to me, because we're looking
100%.
for that consistency. When it comes to outrights for me, I sprinkled on Stuart Sink today at 300 to 1. I'm okay with that, because I think there's a certain magic moment that he can capture and win the tournament. I'm not going to bet Stuart Sink for a top 40 or a top 20 or any of that jazz based off of any sort of recent form. For me, I tend to almost fade guys that are in good recent form, because the books will sometimes overprice them to a degree. And then you can get a good value on a guy that's not like he's playing to his baseline in his current form, so you know what you're going to be getting from your guy that's super consistent, but the books are kind of overreacting to a guy like, say, David Lipsky, for example, or whatever, like someone that played well the week before that they,
Jesus.
yeah.
I have so here's a question for you, because I wonder about this all the time. So how do you feel when you see a guy that last week at the Sony Open had, let's say, 75 to 1 odds to win outright, and didn't win, and didn't even T20? Or did they T20? They might have T20, but not in contention. And then this week, they're in a way stronger field and they're shorter odds. How do you feel about that? Like, and my example here is JT Poston, who I do like this week, but I bet him last week at 75-1. He looked good, going through 2 rounds and then kind of fell away a bit. I think he T20'd, but this week he's 50-1 in a way stronger field. And I'm just wondering, how does that happen? And how do you feel it? Does that put you onto a player more because the books know something we don't?
Well, I think just looking at JT's, I think he showed up obviously because of the John Deere Classic. He made it to the Tournament of Champions and kind of played well there.
Oh,
so I think what's happened now is he's stacked 2 because he was playing like shit leading up to the end of the year, right? And then he now has stacked 2 good events together. I mean, a T20 is not terrible, but he's showing the bookmakers that he's played consistently better golf over the last 2 rounds now, and maybe it's also interesting because you're going from one course to a different course too at the same time. You don't know if there's like course history things that the books know about his game here, or there's a whole bunch of variables that could change from a week to week. I mean, a guy could play worse and go like a Kevin Kisner could play pretty bad the week before and then go to the RSM and his odds will be significantly shorter at the next week, right? So it's all about kind of putting the puzzle pieces together. How many good events has he stacked together? Now, am I okay spending 50-1 on him? Like, is 50 too much? Is it too little? You know, like it's never too little, whatever, you know, like is the odd too short?
And I think, well, that's a really good point because, form is obviously very crucial, and also books are so reactive. Like the fact that last week Tom Hoge was 30-1, 25-1.
Yeah, 28, I think.
Something like that. Yeah. And then this week he's the same price as JT, who was 75-1 last week, but Hoge had a pretty rough Sony Open. So it's like, they're like, oh, he's in bad form, so we're just going to make sure that we, drop his odds even more. It's just a really interesting odds they really get me because sometimes it talks me off a player, the fact that a book is switching so much one way or the other.
See, so we can get into the Amex portion of the show now, and I'm on Tom Hoge at 50-1 on Bet Rivers.
You and me both, brother.
Let's go, dude. Like, I'm totally okay with him having a crapshoot of a week because that course doesn't necessarily suit his game that much. Like he's not the most accurate driver of the ball. I think we were kind of looking for a little bit too much off the tee for him. The rest of his game seems pretty okay. I love the fact, I know you've mentioned that there's tons of bunkers and things, but from a scrambling perspective, it seems like scrambling percentages at this golf course are much, much higher than tour average, which for me, I know Tom Hoge is the kind of guy that's struggled around the greens, and he's actually gained at this course around the greens in the few times he's played here. So I love Tom Hoge at this venue because of that exact reason. And that's a good example of the odds going the other direction. He's now 50-1. And I'm thinking about putting an article together of what it takes to be a winner. Like, what do we see from these guys right before they win? Are there guys that just out of nowhere win? Or is there a certain trait, like a 3 or 4 event stretch that these guys you can see? Ding, 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 approach. All of a sudden, he like Siwoo, the Houston Open was a telltale sign. But there were a lot of guys in the Houston Open that struck the ball well too. Not to the degree that Siwoo did, but there's green flags and red flags instantly. So it's interesting, man. So it's really, really interesting.
And you bring up a good point though, in the sense that recent form, I shouldn't say recent form, but their form coming into a win is very, very dependent on the type of golfer that they are. Like, there are those elites who can win anywhere, anytime. There's not too much they need to go out there and do it. But then there's guys like, and I'm sure you feel the same way. It's like, if I even get wind that Cam Champ has missed 4 cuts in a row, but then finished T10 somewhere, click, outright, done. Like, it's just some guys, they need that juice. And I was looking today at some stats that 10 out of the last 11 winners at the Amex have come T10 in one of the last 4 events they've played. Now, because it's the 3rd event of the season, really you're looking to the TOC or the Sony. So it's an interesting call. Like, I mean, obviously you can't put too much weight into that kind of stuff because, for example, coming into the Sony, it was like 17 of the last 19 winners had played at the TOC and Siwoo didn't. So whatever. And in fact, almost everyone in contention on Sunday didn't play at TOC. But you do have to look at that kind of stuff and see there are certain places that lend themselves to guys who have gotten some competitive golf under their belt. There's certain places that lend themselves to people who really have a sense of what it means to compete on a Sunday. You got to take all that into account.
Yeah, no, I think you spot on there, bro. It's really interesting, and like I said, I'm a big long baseline kind of guy, but for an outright pick, I'm totally okay putting that whole philosophy out of the window. To pick a winner, I think you got to really have the guy has to have some sort of a momentum behind him, unless it's a course history pick. So which I don't think at this venue is that big of a deal. I was looking at the course history, and it doesn't reflect that good on predicting who's going to play well. Yeah, it's just an absolute crapshoot every year, and the last bunch of winners have all been high odds. So, speaking of, where the heck have you got any bets figured out yet? Like, what are you looking at for the Amex this week? What's your kind of golf are you looking for? What's the Amex? Now that we've told everybody about how you do it week to week, how are you doing it this week?
So this week, I'm looking at a combination of, our key stats that we were talking about. Obviously, I'm always looking at strokes gained total, strokes gained tee to green. That's just, one of the most crucial stats, but also very much the approach, especially 125 to 200. I'm looking at, scrambling and around the green, and not really worrying too much about putting, just because of the fact that this is a place with smaller greens. The likelihood of three putts are much more mitigated because you're not going to be putting from, 100 feet away. So I definitely am looking at those. There's a couple of guys that I've been looking at that, I'm just not even worried about how they played last week. You and I both are on Tom Kim at 50 to 1. Tom Hoge at 50 to 1. Absolutely love him. Then there's some guys that are just course horses that you can't ignore the way that they've been at these types of places. Obviously, I'm talking about guys like Adam Hadwin, who it seems like he is made for this. Because another thing about the Amex, and this is another reason why I'm keeping my unit size a little bit smaller than normal for outrights at this event, is because it's a Pro-Am. There's some golfers, especially the elite tier, who fucking hate Pro-Ams because they don't want to play with jabronis named, Brian, who goes by Fade My Play on Twitter. They don't want to play with guys who are CEOs of, law firms that they've never heard of. They don't care. Yeah. They just want to go out and play golf. So it definitely grinds on a few other guys that it wouldn't on, younger, more hungrier players. I think that there's some really great looks when you look at guys like KH Lee, who, this tournament usually ends up around the 23, 24 mark. Yeah. KH Lee, we know, can win in a birdie fest, even though he hasn't won already. I love the Gala this week. I think that his distance definitely will help him, get up there, because driving accuracy is not as much of a thing here as distance. So that definitely gives him a much bigger advantage. But also the 3-course, turn. It's like you have Stadium course, which is a Pete Dye. It's going to be short. It's going to be plodding. Then you have the other 2 courses, which are much easier in the La Quinta and the other one's
the Nicklaus Tournament course.
Thank you, the Nicklaus Tournament corner. So it's like, I think that I'm targeting guys that have a very good approach game. I'm targeting guys that have a very good wedge game. So I'm off Rahm this week.
Yes.
And,
I love
and
that.
I'm not afraid to go back to some of the guys that sucked last week. I'm, at the top, I love Tom Kim and Willie Z. Those are the 2 guys I'm looking at. I haven't decided yet, just because Willie Z, I want to take him in tournaments that -12 gets it done,
Yeah.
And I love Tom Kim this week because of how bad he was last week and the fact that it was just his putter. I think there's some other names, I won't lie. Some guys that I love this week. JT Poston again at 86. I found him. Harris English at 90. I love that. And looking at some recent form of guys, one of the things that I really like here is guys that are in the correlated stats that I think are really important. Guys that rank high in those, like Cam Young, for example. You just can't deny what he looks like. I haven't bet him yet. I just want to be talked into him, but he ranks 4th off the tee, 2nd in birdie or better percentage, and he's top 5 in birdie or better 150 to 200. That's an incredible combination of stats, like top 5 in 3 of the most important categories. Very few other guys that are on this course have that are 25 to 1. So I think those are important things to consider. My favorite ones that I've already bet: Tom Hoge, KH Lee, Seth Theegala, and Harris English. And then in terms of some deep shots that I think people shouldn't sleep on, whether you want to bet him outright, T40, whatever, Callum Tarren, I know it's his first event in a while. Love him. His game suits this course at 200 to 1. Ben Griffin, fantastic week last week at 150 to 1. And finally, Nick Taylor. I know I'm just saying everyone on the board, but Nick Taylor, 200 to 1 as well. This is a guy who loves this course, had a decent enough week last week to make me think he's in good form and his game suits this. Those are the guys I'm looking at. Obviously, there's so many great guys that, I will be betting top 20, top 40, but those are my outright looks so far, and the ones that I've bet.
Cool. I'm going to go through mine slightly, and then we can talk about a few guys that we have overlapped, because we got some, but I will only be placing extremely volatile top 20 bets tomorrow.
Ooh, okay. I like this.
So I'm not fucking around with any plus 100 nonsense at this event.
No.
When it comes to it's like controlled aggression, because I want to embrace the volatility of these jabronis walking around on all 3 different courses for a 7-hour round.
Yes.
And I just don't think the consistency golfers are showing me on my screen is going to translate to this week. So I am going to take all my money that I spend on top 20s and top 40s, and I'm going to put in the DFS market this week, because that is where I think volatility is your friend. Whereas a top 20, top 40, not so much. Matchups are a little different. We'll see what cooks there, but I've got a top 20 bet on a guy that's plus 700. So the model kicked him out. Yeah,
Can I guess who?
Go for it.
Is it Justin Lower?
No, it's not.
Okay. All right.
But he's a fun guy to watch and root for. His name is Mark Hubbard. Top 20 plus 700.
Hubbard.
He's the guy that's he's coming off surgery on his toe. So like, he was playing golf when he missed all those cuts with a broken foot, essentially. Like, the guy's just like walking around there, switching out drivers, blah, 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 the whole shebang during a round. So the odds for him have just been I don't know. He's one of the best approach players in the field.
Yeah. And
he's also a really good putter. For me, that's enough to bet on a guy. He's 250 to 1 on my card. I think you can grab him right now on DraftKings at 300 to 1. And then it's plus 700 for a top 20. So if you look at his game and when he plays good golf, he's so solid. But he's also very volatile, and I'll take it at plus 700 because
volatile.
If I can lay 1 unit on him to pretty much recoup my placements from last week, that might be the only bet I place, and then just hope he does it. If not, I lose 1 unit. It is what it is.
You've convinced me. I love a bit of Mark Hubbard anyway, because of the fact that he is just one of those guys that when he shows up, he is up there.
Yes.
I feel like he's a top 20 or MC.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I'm totally okay taking him in an event like this. I can see him not necessarily feeling like he's going to be a winner at this tournament, shooting a course record out on La Quinta with a bunch of jabronis, having a good time, most likely sipping on some guy's beer in the golf cart or whatever. And just, I can see him vibing with everybody. Whereas I don't see like a John Rahm is a full fade for me this week because of the wedges, and just because he's a testy, fiery Spaniard that I don't think gets along with golfers very well.
And other people. PSA here. Shout out to all listeners. Obviously, if you're a listener and watcher of any of Model Maniacs info, but if you aren't already aware, Rahm Wedge Watch is by far the best part of any tournament John Rahm is involved with.
Yes, and let's get into we'll jump back in here, because while you brought that up, I've got these numbers here for a weighted distribution, right? So you're taking, so you saw earlier on the screen that I had the stats up for all 3 courses, where I just take 300 yards off the drive and just get like a rough estimate of what's going on. 26% of shots are coming from 150 to 175 across all 3 courses.
Yeah.
And then there's 11 within 150, and then 8 from 125. So he's going to be hitting And John Rahm doesn't hit a driver 300 yards. He hits it 315 yards, which puts him right in that range where he's horrific from. And last week, or at the Tournament of Champions, he lost on approach, and it was all because of his wedges. And he was sinking all those putts that he was hitting to 30 feet with the wedges. So his putter absolutely saved his ass at the Tournament of Champions, because now he has to do that again this week. I think he's just consistently not a good wedge player, and I think we're going to hopefully take advantage of that. He's 6-1. What on earth is going on with that? So that's really peculiar. I've lost absolute track. Where was I going with this? Oh, the wedges.
Yeah, no, we were just talking about how Wedge Watch will be in full effect this week.
Yes, it is in full effect, dude, because I was taking a peek at John Rahm's stuff, and let's take a look here. He is all the way down the board. He's a casual 21st in proximity numbers, like if you weight everything prorated, and that includes like 200-yard shots and things. But the fact that he's so deficient from inside 150, it's just throwing him out. He's one of the best iron players in the world. Just the wedges, like you said, is no bueno. So that's why he doesn't rate out. He's like 5th in my model, which is also interesting. So let's get back to my outrights too, because I want to share some Tom Hoge love with you. We have him going. I think he's finished inside the top 6 here 2 of the last 3 times he's played, which I'm not going to bank on massive course history here, but if someone's played well, I might go back to them. But in DFS, I might go away from them because that's what people are going towards. But we've seen this course is all sorts of stuff. So 2 different worlds that you can live in playing as a golf better. But Tom Hoge, his irons, dude, are just on fuego right now. And he putts well on these greens. So love it. Love it. He's gained around the greens here in the last bunch of times he's played. Let's go. I grabbed him at 50-1 on Bet Rivers. They do that enhanced odds stuff where 45 turns to a 50. And I love myself some Tom Hoge. David Lipsky, 110-1.
Love it. He's on my T20 card.
Yeah. I think in an event like this, I loved how aggressive he was with his putting. Like watching in the final round, he was not leaving any of his putts short. Got plugged in a bunker, which I never saw anyone happen, and he made a double. So like just random stuff. This is an eye play. It's a maniac play. You know, the model doesn't like it. I love him. So I'm playing him 110-1 at this course. Let's go. Emiliano Grillo, 120-1 on FanDuel. They're laying 120-1 on Emiliano Grillo. We ball struck the crap out of it last week. And he can light it up with the putter, man. Like we've seen him do this stuff. And now he's 120-1. I've been betting him at like 40-1 multiple times. So he's chilled. Ben Griffin. Yay.
I love
Griffin.
It. I couldn't be more excited about it.
I know. To be honest, he tilts me as a person. I just can't stand looking at him. But like when I see him in contention, I get like so angry. You know, like when you don't love everyone in the world. Like if you loved everybody in the world, like you'd be Jesus. But it's like, I just can't. It's the look of him. I don't know. There's something about him. But love his golf game. Love where he's trending. You know, the whole shebang. It's all good there. Mark Hubbard, 250-1. 300-1 is out there on DraftKings right now, which is why it went from plus 600 to plus 700 for his top 20. Stuart Sink, plus 300-1.
Wow.
Just a guy that when you see him rolling, all of a sudden he's got a new caddy now. Reagan's off. When he brought Reagan on, he won those 2 events. Now he's kicked Reagan to the curb. He's got a new caddy on the bag. We've seen what these new caddies can do. Stuart Sink's won multiple golf tournaments before.
Yep.
So a guy that's 300-1 that's won within the last calendar year or so, well, last season at least, I love 300-1 at an event like this, especially with, I'm going off the fact that around the green play isn't going to be that significant this week. I know that I'm going to throw some bunkers in there because, I mean, you have to, but
you have to.
I think the majority of the around the green shots are kind of easier. Okay. And then Satoshi Kodaira, 350-1, each way 6 places. Just he's lighting up the screen for me from the proximity range of like 125 to 150 or whatever I mentioned earlier being an important one. I think 150, 175. He's just a killer from that range. And if I'm going to pick a guy he's one of the best in the field, been crushing in T5s over in Japan, you don't even understand what these people are saying to him on this course. So he's just going to be in his own world, doing his thing. Totally cool. Final guy. I've got my whole card set out.
I love it. Tell me.
You say Tommy. Tommy. Kim. Let's go. Choo choo. 25-1 DraftKings.
Yeah.
We're back on him. This is exactly what you're talking about. Go for it.
Well, I love Tom Kim.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we looking at here that is not elite from Tom Kim outside of the putter? Like, his approach game is arguably top 3 in the field. I'm just looking right now, sorry, at the stats that I have in front of me. So looking at the advanced metrics, he is number 1 in the field, just barely beating out Tom Hoge. Shout out. He's number 1 in the field in approach, number 1 in the field tee to green. He's, I mean, just incredible with his irons. I love the fact that he's going to be okay here being able to use his accuracy, especially on the Pete Dye course, which they'll play twice. His greens in regulation is, elite.
Through the roof.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Again, he's second in the field, only behind Tony Finau. Like, how do you not at a course where your irons are going to be what wins you this tournament? How do you not bet on the guy with number 1 in approach, number 1 tee to green, and number 2 in greens in regulation, and coming off the worst putting performance of his career for someone that when he's gained half a stroke or more putting has come top 5 or 1? Like, it's just, it seems like such a no-doy bet, and he could miss the cut again and make us all look like idiots. But I love Tom Kim. I am so happy to root for a kid that, like, genuinely is so fun to watch, gets so fired up, and is going to be around golf for so long that it's like, I'm just excited to be in on him. And it's one of those things where, I missed his first win at the Wyndham, and I won't miss another one.
Yes. Well, it's going to be his week this week, especially at 25-1. I understand the putting concerns, but also I was looking at his metrics, and he's had horrific putting weeks right before the Wyndham, where he went rogue on the greens, absolutely scorched them.
Yes.
So a putter, like we know, like, you don't just hit irons well and then bad and then well and then bad. Like, if you're a good iron player, they're coming to the party majority of the time, which he's shown he can do, hence his ranking in this field. The putting, I'm not concerned about. I think he can bounce back. I'm taking a 25-1 on him. There's a whole, like, Scotty Scheffler's 10-11-1, and he's essentially the same person as Tom Kim right now. He doesn't have the distance off the tee like Tom does. Sorry, Tom doesn't have Scotty's distance, but they're both incredible iron players, and Scotty's been putting worse for longer. So, like, he needs to have a breakout week too. But if you're going to give me a Tom Kim that's only had 1 or 2 bad weeks of putting, even last week, because the number's now 25-1, sign me the hell up. I'll because if you have to bet him, if he played well and finished T20, what do you think his number would have been this week?
Oh my God. I mean, if he even made 16? The cut, he'd definitely be under 20-1.
Yeah, like
him and Sungjae.
Exactly.
Because Sungjae's history, I mean, see, this is the interesting thing. I feel bad saying this because I wish there was a prop bet out there that was like every South Korean or like all the President's Cup South Koreans to be top 20. Because, like, would it surprise you if KH Lee, Siwoo Kim, Tom Kim, and Sungjae are all top 20 this week? Absolutely not. I love Sungjae. His history here is fantastic. I'm a big Sungjae guy, and I just haven't seen it from it. It's same with Sam Burns for me. Like, I love Sam Burns, but there's just something that it's like, I don't even question your top 20. I'm sure you'll do that, but I haven't seen you in contention for a while now. And I need to see that before I start, paying up to, get Sungjae at 20-1. I need to see a little bit more on the weekend for me to really get behind it.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, people like Sam Burns, he wins a lot, and he's 35-1 on Bet Rivers. And I was looking at him and looking at him and looking at him, and I just couldn't quite get there because it's just his game isn't there. Like, I don't think he just shows up and wins. I think you can see his game trend slightly for like 1 or 2 events, and then he wins them. And then the same for Sungjae, like you were saying. Like, his Sunday rounds have been pretty bad this last year when he's been in contention. Like, he was leading Tom Kim, I think, going into Sunday at the Wyndham, and then the putter just let him down over the weekend, which isn't his thing. You know, like he's pretty
Yeah,
good. And I was looking at his putting stats in previous years when he was in contention, and they were fine. Just this year,
yeah,
all of a sudden, it's a bit little sketchy. So lots of
exactly.
weird stuff, but yeah,
Lots of weird stuff.
lots of weird stuff, my man. I know we try to keep it under an hour, but 104 not too shabby.
No, not too bad. I
Um,
will say, I have to say, and I'm interested because I never, I'm not a type of person who we do golf betting. We know that there's no such
yes.
thing as a certainty. Tom Kim missed the cut last week. Enough said. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But there's one bet that I have to say before we end here.
Please.
Like the top 20s that I've already put in. I haven't seen many out yet. Not too many lines are, but one that I already took immediately was Taylor Montgomery, top 20,
Bang.
plus 200.
Plus 200?
Plus 200. Yeah. Bet online and at BetUS,
Woo!
both offshores. But I don't think he's finished outside the top 20 in the last like 3 months. Like he's just a top 20 machine. And even this week, I bet him top 20 and I didn't think he was going to do it, and then just put in just enough to make it. And it's like,
Yeah.
how do you not bet that? I'm considering it at 45-1, but him as a top 20 is just, yes,
dude, it's such a good bet because he's this guy. The putter is going to let him down one time an event, and it did it on Saturday when he was at the top of the leaderboard. And we were just talking about this earlier. So, but his game is good enough to just overcome that deficiency and still finish inside the top 20, man.
And then I need your opinion on two quick props that I'm considering. Is one, and this is more of a hometown bet for you, but I personally, like, having been betting on the DP World Tour of late, I love Daffs, MJ Daffue, top South African. Obviously, it's a huge number at plus 500, but
who are the other Saffers?
You obviously got Seabez, Dean Burmester, Fratelli, EVR, and Garrick Higo. Not worried about really EVR, Higo, or Fratelli, but I think just like it's more of a 3-ball at plus 500 over Seabez and Burmester. And it's just like, I don't know. He did well last week. I love what he does on the DP World
Sunshine Tour as well. He was playing nicely in South Africa.
He knows how to play in heat.
Yes, dude. And these bigger courses that like you can rip it off the tee a little bit, I think you'll do some good stuff. Yeah. Plus 500. Why the hell not?
I mean, for a quarter unit, something like that. And then another one, this is the last one, I swear. It's because I can't get to him outright, but I love Grillo top South American, because Munoz, his game suits here, but I don't know about it. And then you got, Echeverria, who I tipped up to Sia last week. I have to pat myself on the back. I said that he'd do well at a flat 6K and came in T12. But Echeverria, Nunez, and Goya, not too worried about them. But it's Grillo over Munoz in Vegas. And it's like, plus 220. I like it. I like it a lot.
I mean, and Vegas hasn't really done. I mean, if you look at what he's been
doing. I mean, he'll be an auto first-round leader.
Well, yeah, exactly. And then just tumble down the leaderboard as the week goes on. So, yes, we'll play Vegas first-round leader over Munoz. No, but I love it. I love Grillo, dude. His game is his ball striking is so consistent too, and that's something I love too about him. So
absolutely.
And the putters, it's all going to come together. Bro.
It's getting better.
Come together. So he's going to do some good stuff. But Brian, my man, at Fade My Play, big fan of yours. Always the great stuff you put out there. Just your cards and interacting with you on Twitter is one of my favorite.
I'm just cheating off your cheat sheets from Rotoballer and that you post. So,
hey, thank you for saying that. I know you are a big fan, and I am too. And if you aren't already following at Fade My Play, go do that. Is there anything else you want to tell the people?
Best of luck to everyone. If I can shout it out, tee off in 10, just a 10-minute quick bets episode, the first one of the year, coming out this Wednesday. But other than that, just good luck on everyone's bets, and go Tom Hoge. Let's be real here.
Let's take a Tom Hoge victory. And I never saw any of your tee off in 10, and I didn't want to mention it unless you weren't doing it. But now that you are, it's one of my favorite things. It's
coming back.
It's a very 10 minutes, 10 bets. Let's rock and roll, dude. That's exactly what you're looking for on a Wednesday, and it's one of my favorite things. So
yes, sir.
Awesome sauce. Go Tom Hoge and another Tom, and
any Tom.
Anytime. It's Tom
Except
time.
Petri, because I'm not betting him this week.
Yes, but he's Thomas. So
There you go.
we'll leave him alone. But yes, boys, girls, thank you all for tuning in. It's been a fun chat with my boy, and hopefully you learned a lot as I. And we'll catch you guys tomorrow for Back Nine Bets with your boy alone, solo, going over some DFS stuff and my other bets, and just out here just firing off some fun stuff. So we'll catch you guys tomorrow.
Thanks for having
Cheers.
me on.
You bet, my buddy.